Little countdown. Okay, we're live. Well, Carrie Hannon and Jana Heron. I got
Sharon.
it. It kind of rhymes. Your names are so close. It's almost hard to remember, but it's very cool. Welcome to the podcast
Well,
Thank
thanks.
you.
and the Substack Live. I guess you said Substack Live.
Yeah, well, it's great to be here.
I have been sort of devouring your book, which is called Retirement Bites, a Gen X Guide to Securing Your Financial Future. I've been devouring your book because I am like your complete target audience. I am well, I guess I'm a little bit of a late Gen Xer, but I am a Gen Xer. And I find myself, all the questions you ask and all the kind of issues that you deal with in this book are exactly in my wheelhouse and kind of exactly what I'm dealing with. And not only that, but what all my friends are dealing with and what we talk about all the time. And this issue of like, what do we do now? We're sort of in our 50s here. We kind of are thinking about retirement, some of us, but like it doesn't feel like we can retire in anytime soon because we have such, financial worries and considerations. And but like a lot of us find ourselves in this kind of predicament that I want to kind of talk about with you guys because I want to understand why you wrote this book specifically for Gen X. Like what about Gen X? Lay out the situation for us that we kind of find ourselves in this time in history as far as, financially. It's a kind of a precarious time for us. Can you lay it out and why you kind of decided specifically to make this book for Gen X?
Absolutely. I'm going to let Jana take the lead on
Take that one. Okay.
Well, I mean, we kind of came up with the idea. I was Carrie's editor for a little while.
That's how you know each other. Okay, cool.
And a couple of years ago, we started seeing a lot of surveys coming out about Gen X and about how they're unprepared for retirement. Their retirement savings is not a lot, and they're got a decade or a little bit more to go before that traditional retirement age. And so we started seeing these, and Carrie was like, "There's something here."
Yeah.
And not only that, but those articles that she wrote, those columns, got a lot of engagement, a lot of comments, got a lot of feedback, and people are like, "Yeah, this is me." And so we're like, "This is a generation that might need a book," and
we still read books, which is nice.
Right. Everybody talks about the boomers, they talk about millennials, and it's just like, hello, we're still here. And so that was kind of the impetus for the book. And then I'm also a late Gen Xer.
Welcome to the club. Yeah.
And having these same conversations with my friends and with my family. A lot of them are Gen Xers, my brother, my sister. And so it really felt like it was personal as well. So this is something I'm addressing people like me and my friends, and I really want to help them have a better future.
Right. So can you guys explain how we got to where we are? Like there's been a lot of factors that have kind of come into play between the 401ks and the way the transfer of wealth from the boomers to the Gen X and all the different factors that kind of got us to where we are financially right now. Can you kind of lay that out for us a little bit?
Yeah, John, I think that the biggest factor, as you just mentioned, is the 401k.
Right.
So when Gen X was stepping into the workplace, that is just the same time when the 401k was stepping into the workplace. And nobody really knew what these things were. There was very little guidance, no financial education about how we were supposed to do it yourself retirement. The traditional pension world was sliding away. There were just a few options, even if you were lucky enough to have a retirement plan from your employer that had one of these 401ks. There weren't many options to invest in, nor could you put a lot of money into these accounts. So it was just a strange time and trying to figure out what to do. And of course, the whole idea was none of us were prepared to have to start planning for retirement at that age because my goodness, it's so far in the future. You can't even imagine why.
I remember having those 401k meetings like in my 20s and just being like, what is this? And it was kind of new, right? It was all kind of new and like
brand new. And there were economic factors, which, from Jana, you can address some of those, but some of these big things where Gen X was square in the middle of these, if you want to jump in there on that, Jana.
Well, yeah, there were times, there's the dot-com crash, and for a lot of the, older Gen Xers, they got a little bit screwed there, you
Yeah.
know? And so, like, maybe they were investing in the stock market, and then they're like, "Oh, maybe that's not such a good idea." The other thing is when the 401k came out, it was supposed to be a supplement to your pension. It wasn't supposed to be the primary vehicle, but
Right.
that's what it's become for us.
Because
And
we didn't
so
get pensions. So many of us didn't get pensions, right?
no, no, and if we did, we got a little pension, and then it probably got frozen or closed or something like that, and so there's we were really kind of stuck. And then you have like the Great Recession that happened that really hit Gen X hard. And so we kind of like had a setback, and we had to come back from that. And so you have these like ups and downs. I know millennials like to talk about the Great Recession and how they were like stuck in their parents' basement, but
Yeah.
we lost a lot of like home equity during that time.
Yeah. It
John,
was terrible.
there was another a factor here too, is credit cards were just coming onto the scene in a big way, right?
Mhm.
You didn't have to earn a lot of money to get 6 or 7 credit cards. I mean, they were marketing them like crazy. And so Gen X really was the first generation to sort of embrace living on credit to a certain degree. And when, today, that's one of the big factors that a stumbling block for Gen X is they have a lot of credit card debt.
Oh,
And
thank goodness that I'm not alone in this, because I feel like when I was so relieved when I read that in your book. I was like, oh, good, because I'm not the only idiot here. Yeah, it's terrible debt. Yeah, I mean, it's the worst, and it's almost impossible to get out of it.
And then there's the student loan piece of it, having loans of their own, and even now for their children. So you've got a combo thing of loans they've taken out there, which is another dumber whammy. And then, as we talk about, and everyone, when they refer to Gen X, often calls it the sandwich generation, because now also you've got the kids, and Jana can attest to kids getting prepared to go to college, but you also have aging parents. So Jana, you can maybe jump in there a little, those blocks there.
Oh yeah. I mean, my son, he's a sophomore in high school. So
My daughter is a sophomore in high school. Hello.
Yeah. And so you got that cost coming up. And
I've got a son in college. So yes.
Oh, so
yeah, I'm already there.
And even my sister, who's older than me, and her kids have already graduated college, they were having a tough time in the market trying to get a job and stuff. It's just been hard for younger people right now getting that entry level job. So, and then at the same time, you got to worry about your parents. We've had, personally situations where, we had a family member that needed a lot of help. And it was exhausting because we had to help a person with their finances and getting them set up. And at the same time, taking time off of work, driving down, making sure they're doing okay. And, there's going to be other similar situations like that as the parents get older, so it's just it's a lot.
Yeah. I think let's talk about this word retirement, because I think as Gen Xers, we grew up kind of with this like image of retirement as like you're like on a golf course in like Florida, at the age of 60, and that is so far off from. I mean, it probably would never be my reality anyway. But even that idea of like having all this free time and like being, like just that twilight years of my life seems so far off to me. Like the idea of retirement. And so when you guys talk about retirement, how are we defining retirement here? Like, is this when you just stop working full time?
I think of it more as if a time of transition to perhaps phasing into a work life that is less dominant in your overall world, that you slowly phase into the balance between doing not-for-profit projects, giving back in some way, spending time with family, traveling, some of those things that you didn't do when you're in your primary working years. But it's also a time of, it can either be phasing in with your current employer, if that's how it's going to work out, or actually just launching in new directions. Because with longevity, if you think of the idea of 65 actually being a retirement age, and that was totally made up to begin with.
Yeah.
So it's not really realistic with many people living longer, healthier lives. So if you think of 2 decades or 3 decades to finance in retirement, the idea of stopping work, cold stop, it seems pretty unrealistic for many people, both financially and I got to say, kind of what you were saying, psychologically, like, what? I mean, it's just, so it's not that I'm going to work till I no longer can't work, although some of us might do that. I like to work. I like what I do. But,
Really does.
you know, but we
I do
spend,
too. I like working. I mean, can't imagine just not working.
right,
Yeah.
we like it. And so, but, in Retirement Bites, we have a whole section dedicated to, okay, well, what do you want to do next? What kind of work? And plan on working as part of your retirement plan, even if it's not for the pure financial angle of it, but for the mental acuity and the socialization, all the things that work brings to our lives that makes for a healthier lifespan.
I mean, what makes it complicated, I think, for Gen X, and again, I run in a certain circle of, right? So a lot of my friends are former magazine journalists, right? This is like the world I grew up in, a lot like you, Carrie, who grew up in that world of the old traditional media world, which has changed so radically. And so many of my peers find themselves, not so much out of work. We're really out of work, but also kind of like balancing a lot, like we're multi-hyphenates now, like we're not just one thing. And I think growing up, we always kind of imagined that, I'll just be working in magazines till I'm in my 60s and then I'll retire and move on. And like, that hasn't happened. And not only in the publishing business, but in the really pretty much in any of the creative pursuits, right? If you're in film or whatever, all my friends that are in creative pursuits, media pursuits, find themselves, it's just not the model that our parents grew up with. And so even though, the idea of retirement seems so distant because we're still trying to figure out how to like survive this year, I think. And so, I mean, I don't know. I know you kind of have to write the book for all people. There's the people who have their jobs and are going to kind of like eventually retire from their full-time jobs. But I feel like a lot of Gen Xers are kind of out of work right now, or already being phased out of the workplace in a way. Did you find that in doing a research for this book? Did you find that, Jana?
Carrie, I'm gonna let you take
Jana
this. You're the career coach here.
So yes, in fact, I think that is a reality. We've seen a lot of, especially, there've been a lot of layoffs. There's been a lot of, mergers, all sorts of changes. And one of the biggest changes that Gen X has faced, now boomers did too, especially younger at the younger end of the boomers, is technology has just completely changed the way we all approach work and the way we do our jobs. So while you mentioned the magazine world, well, yeah, it's changed fundamentally. There's not as many.
There are no magazines.
Physical print things that you can hold on to, but the fact is you can do your job remotely. You don't have to show up at a location. There's lots of different ways to slice or dice. If you're willing to be nimble and try new ways of doing things, you can find new angles. And yes, in fact, Gen X has certainly been hit hard by some of these layoffs, because I got to say, ageism is alive and well in the workplace, and it starts in your 40s. It does not, it starts in your 40s, 50. Truth be known, I think many employers are getting better about that, but there is sort of still, if we're going to cut people, let's go for the people who are high earners, as Jen and I write about in the book, the one positive thing about Gen X is many Gen Xers are at the peak of their earnings years. I mean, this is a time where that's why they can make adjustments to saving for retirement and getting financial security put in place for them. It's not a negative look at like, oh, you're screwed now. You're not. There is runway ahead, but you need to pay attention now. It's not so far away in the windshield that it's so far down the highway you can't see it. No, in fact, it is coming into view. It's just, so now's the time to take action. But I don't know, Jana, do you have any interest in sharing your own personal sort of as a Gen Xer who experienced?
I love it. I love hearing the personal stories. Yeah. if you don't mind, Jana. Yeah.
As a Gen Xer, I got laid off this year in March on my birthday.
Oh, nice. Classy. Yeah. By the way, join the club. I got laid off 2 years ago. I mean, I don't know anybody, honestly, who hasn't been laid off in the last 2 years. I mean, some people have found new jobs. Some people are freelancing like I am. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, and Carrie was like my second call. And Carrie's like, this is great for you. You need to, because you're going to be able to pivot and do.
We all need friends like Carrie. Yeah.
I was like, Carrie, I don't know if it's great, but
right. Great wouldn't be the first word to come.
But she's just like, and Carrie has a really wonderful network, and she really helped me out, with freelancing and stuff. And also, I did reach out to my network, which is an important thing, which Carrie always says, to keep your network up to date, and check in because you might need them. And I have ended up, I'm now in a contract position for a medium-term contract position at the Wall Street Journal.
Nice.
In the audio department. I hadn't done
Cool.
the podcast stuff, and so I've been learning a whole new skill.
What a
And it's
fun
great, right? Like it
gig.
makes my resume look a lot better now.
Yeah. What are you doing specifically? If you don't mind me asking, I'm always fascinated with podcasting things. Since I started a podcasting business, that was kind of one of my side hustles. Yeah.
So I've been filling in, doing a lot of different things, like just a supervising producer on their one of their news shows that comes out daily. I am also helping them with some special project podcasts. We have a project across the newsroom that's celebrating the nation's 250th anniversary, and so we
cool.
have some podcasts that are related
So
to that.
I think one of the things that's really interesting, and you guys talk about this, is one of the things, and I want to get into sort of, okay, what are some of the nuts and bolts steps that we can do to get prepared for retirement, but is leaning into your skill set, right? Like figuring out what your skill set is and how it can translate into other places that are hiring. Like you might, magazines that might not exist anymore, but we all still know how to tell stories and how to report stories and how to write, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So these are skills, right?
I always say I sell words for a living. So,
Yeah.
whatever it is, whether I'm writing, I'm speaking, I'm selling words for a living. And so if you can boil down what is the nut of what you do, and in many cases, it's understanding your skill set. It's being willing to constantly be learning new things. You cannot say you're done learning because everything's changing far too quickly. So even if you are laid off at this time, you need to be like, okay, I'm not just sitting here sending out resumes. It's like Jana said, who's my network? Let me get rolling. Because I always say networking is one letter away from not working. So if you're not networking, you're crazy, get going. And LinkedIn is a fabulous way to do that. It really is. Who do I know? Who's working at companies where I'd like to work? Might know something, because the only way, it's really who you know that's going to get you in the door. You still have to get the job yourself. But if employers hire people they know or people they know, it's not changed. This is how it's been for years. Pretty rare to get hired from shooting off a resume to an online job post. That's pretty rare.
I think that's one of the biggest wastes of time, it seems to me, is to just blindly apply to jobs on LinkedIn.
So your network and your skills. And so if you have time off, add a new skill. It's so easy to add something these days. Virtual learning, just really exploded coming out of the pandemic. And there's opportunities to stay sharp and be willing to learn new ways of doing things. Like Jana is incredible. She's an amazing editor, strong news sense, understands storytelling. All of these things translate to lots of different platforms. And also, she's a good manager. So when that time comes where she's really managing her own
team, you should hire Carrie as your personal publicist.
I'm telling you, this
is awesome.
Take Carrie on the road with me.
But we all have these great things about ourselves. We just don't recognize what we're great at because we take it for granted. It's like, well, that's what I do, if you can get somebody who can get up on a balcony and help you look at this, it's really helpful, and it boosts your self-confidence. So there's lots of different ways to go about that job search when you're in that period of, and man, does losing a job knock you down, right? It makes it guts you. Even if you know it's not personal, it guts you, so.
Yeah, it guts you on so many levels. But, obviously financially is the scariest thing. And then, then the health insurance thing kind of creeps in. I want to talk about that because that's a big expense that you have to pick up. But before we get into that, I do want to talk about this transitional period we're talking about here. This is sort of like in between jobs, almost retired, you talk a lot about why it's very important to keep a positive money mindset. And I think you also talk about the different ways people think about money. I think there's some psychological, there's like 4 different types of people, the way they think about money. I think you guys put that in your book, right? Or there's the people who are like, gives them incredible anxiety just talking about money. There's people who like to talk about money. And so, but you say, and we could get into that because I sort of fall into the type of, I just do not like to talk about money at all. It just makes me anxious. I don't like to think about money, which is not good because it means I don't have sort of a positive mindset around money, a kind of being sort of optimistic. And you talk about being like a proactive optimist. about money. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Like how to be that person?
I'm
No,
gonna let Carrie take this because she is that person.
I'm going to start off on that, but I'm also going to shift on what other important aspect of all of this in a real practical way. But in the sense of setting yourself up for success, a big part of it is, really believing that you can do this. That you understand, you have hope, you have optimism, you have a way of valuing what you're doing and what your life is. So when you put in having enthusiasm and resilience, all these things, I call it my hover method, but we junk them all together. But the point is, if you look at your money with this sense of possibilities, not from a half glass point of view, but a half glass full point of view, and say, okay, well, how can I make the changes necessary to achieve the life that I'd like to have? And it's really pulling it back. And it's some of that sort of new agey kind of thing about saying, what am I grateful for?
I think I can. I know I can. That's exactly.
Yeah. But what my ideal? What am I looking for? What am I striving for? What is it? And just having a visual image of what it is you're saving for can really have tremendous power over helping you do it. So it's not just socking money away into a 401k retirement account that you pick, a couple of index funds. That means nothing to you. You look at the value maybe when the market goes up and down, but it's just not really helpful in inspiring you to really find ways to make it work and find ways around the edges. So I'm big into visualization, whether it's with putting up an image board, a vision
board,
board, doing it on your computer, on the walls, things that help you kind of get your hands around what you're up to and what you care about in your life. Like what would a retirement life be for you? Would it be, how much of that would be working? But a lot of us just do this avoidance, like you just said, I'm just getting through today, seriously. Yeah. But let yourself dream, let it go a bit, and try to shift that I can't to I can. And it sounds simplistic. It's super hard to do. But if you do it day by day, like, oh, I was able to achieve this today. I learned, especially people and women in particular, don't want to, I'm not good at math. It bores me. I don't care about investing. Well, that's ridiculous. This is, take a minute and learn something each day. Add something that, no question is too stupid. And Jen, I just want you to shift. And if you don't mind, John, we'll just shift over the one very practical thing you do. And you talk a lot about lifestyle and taking control of it.
Right. I mean, I think, like we said earlier, a lot of us are maybe at our peak earning years. And so we've loosened the purse strings and we maybe go out to eat a little more often than we should. And there's that lifestyle creep. It happens to all of us. We're feeling good. But I think one of the things that helps you figure out and not fear your finances is actually kind of like drilling down and looking at them. And you're like, because it might not be as scary as you think it is. I think it's more the unknown, right? And so if you go through how much money do you spend? How much money do you have coming in every month? How much is it going out? Where is it going? And the other thing I like about that exercise is you kind of figure out where you like to spend money, which shows like, we like to go out to eat. We like to, and so, okay, I like to go out to eat. All right. So then maybe I don't do this other thing that I don't enjoy that much, or it doesn't bring me as much joy. And so I can pull back there, but there's always that lifestyle creep that happens, especially now. And
I was going to wonder, what is the Gen X, in researching Gen X, where do you think the biggest sort of leak is in terms of our spending? Because I don't feel like I don't feel like we're super materialistic. Look, I'm very much generalizing, and I'm sure Madonna was the material girl, but but I feel like we're pretty careful. But I'm wondering where like the leak is in terms of like where do we get a little crazy?
I would say maybe experiences stuff that we do.
Yeah.
Like maybe the vacations are a little bit, we blow it out a little bit more.
Yeah, like, I earned this, right? I'm going on that safari.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying don't take your vacation, but maybe you want to like save ahead of time and make sure you already bank that and not put it on a credit card and hopefully pay it off. I think we're like more of an experience kind of people. I know millennials probably think they are too, but we did it.
So that could be something we could think about.
But John, it's important when we give statistics in the book, and you see them all the time. The Gen X is woefully behind in saving for retirement and all those things, and often they're not. It's just an attitude, like they think they are.
They are.
And there's also when you think of it, you shouldn't just look at your retirement account, what you put aside for your employer. You look at your whole wealth picture, so to speak. And I use the word like broadly, but all of your assets. I mean, and we found that Gen X really has a lot of home equity. There's some real positive pieces here. So look at everything that you have. It could be savings, it can be other assets. And people get so caught up in that specific, how much you have socked away for retirement. Well, there's lots of ways around this. And I think that's super important. And we joke in the book about it. It's just like, this is a generation that drank from the hose, rode bikes without helmets, and Jenna likes to say, raged against the machine. So this is a scrappy group of cohort that
we've been through it. We have.
Through it.
I mean, we've been through some real changes. I mean, from analog to digital, like you said, the Great Recession. I mean, again, we watched an entire industry just fade to dust. We've been through this. We've seen this movie before. So this too shall pass. I always want to give people, and I'm so glad you are giving people the tools to get through this, because I think this can feel a bit overwhelming. And so one of the tools, so obviously having this vision, really important, knowing your net worth, right? Just having a clearer picture of your income, I think is really important, right? Because it makes it less daunting, right? Like you said, once have a real clearer picture. So you're saying, look at beyond just your retirement account and whatever your income is, like look at your home equity, look at your, let's talk a little bit about Social Security, because you guys talk a lot about Social Security. I think this is something this is so far out of our radar, I think, because Social Security is for old people, right? But but what, like, I was really interested in this part of your book. Like, there's a lot I didn't know about Social Security. So when can you start dipping into it? And you guys maybe don't recommend dipping into it right away if you don't have to. So talk to us a little bit about Social Security.
So I'll kick it off quickly, and then I'm going to shift it to Jenna. But number one is the rules are that you can start taking your benefit at age 62. And that's the earliest. And then you ramp it up to your full retirement age, which is now 67 for for all of Gen X is 67.
So you get a bigger benefit.
And then, if you can push it to age 70, that's where that's sort of the cutoff there, because what happens is if you take your benefit before your full retirement age, which would be, say, at 62, a third of what you cut the amount that your check would ultimately be at full retirement age by 30%. Yeah. So you're getting a much smaller check for the rest of your life. If you can wait to your full retirement age and then hang on till 70, you get an 8% each year bump up in your Social Security check till age 70. And then for the rest of your life, you get the biggest check imaginable. The Social Security is like an amazing thing because it's inflation protected. So every year it gets adjusted for inflation. Now, it's not perfect in any means, but it's the only investment out there that is going to adjust for inflation in this same manner. And you're guaranteed it. And I understand we're going to talk about there's issues here, right? It's a mess on certain levels. But there's a lot of buzzy stuff out there right now on the TikTok and memes and YouTube and saying, hey, no, take your check at 62, the earliest possible, and invest it in the stock market. Like, are you kidding me? This is like so scary that people might do this. It's possible that the gains you could get in the stock market would be better, down the road than what I just outlined to you. But I don't have a crystal ball, and I find it hard to believe that you're going to find anything that's as secure when you are counting on this income, and many people are, to support them in retirement in a major way. So that's my little song and dance on Social Security. But Jen, maybe is there anything I missed there that you think is important?
No, not on the actual like math of it and the we're proponents of taking it later just because you're going to get that bigger check. Obviously there's caveats. If you're a person who maybe there's not longevity and you're in your future you know have a health condition or something like that, you might consider taking it earlier. But I think one of the other things that has come out of this is that we're, as a generation, we're worried that Social Security is not going to be there. And so
Yeah.
we're here to tell you about that too. First of all, when we talk about the funds or the reserves for Social Security running out, it doesn't mean Social Security runs out completely. It's just that the number of people working, because your payroll taxes, your Social Security payroll taxes, that's what's funding people's benefits right now, right? And so there's just not going to be enough people working, and so the benefits would be cut by, what is it now, like 75%, 80%,
right?
So you're still going to get that, but let's be honest, Social Security is like the third rail of politics. Like, there's no way that they're going to let that thing run out.
It's like Medicare. These two things,
It's just going to be a minute before they figure it out, because they still have like about 10 years to try to figure it out. And last time that this happened in the 80s, it came down to months before the funds ran out, before they made these changes. And the changes that they're going to make are going to affect younger generations. So, you know, they might push out the full retirement age. This is why our full retirement age is 67 and not 65, because of the deal they made in the 80s to try to like save Social Security. But I think, you know, it's a voting issue. You know, it's important to your financial security. So make sure your lawmakers put it on their agenda.
Yeah. That's a big issue for us. Probably weren't thinking about this as much when we were in our 30s and 40s, right?
John, most many, I should say, financial advisors that we spoke to for the book, actually for particularly their younger Gen X clients, they run the numbers, the retirement scenario, not including the Social Security.
Not including the full Social Security.
The full Social Security, so that they have a more realistic, like, if this happens, you're okay. This is how you prepare for it. And I also think it's just, we do a whole chapter on, or section in the book, on finding that magic number for retirement. Like, everyone thinks, how much do you need to retire? I need $1 million. I need $2 million. I don't know. And for everybody, it's going to be different. And the magic number is really up to you to figure it out, in the sense that it's not $1 million. It depends on where you're going to live and when you're going to start Social Security and what kind of your health.
Aren't there tools online? There's kind of like, doesn't the AARP have like a calculator or something? Or
AARP is a great calculator, yeah. But you know how long you think you're going to live, and what kind of, you know, what, like Jen also, and one thing Jenna, you know, we write about what, really looking at what you spend today as sort of a guideline when you were talking about doing the budgeting. Big important thing to do.
Yeah, because you're going to want to live a very similar lifestyle. That's the goal. And so you got to know how much you like to spend. And I think, you know, take about 80% of that for retirement, and that's what you're going to be spending. The other thing with Social Security, by the way, you can go onto My Social Security, is it .com? .gov, I guess it's .gov.
Okay.
And you can see what your benefit would be at 62, at 67, at 70. And so you can actually look at that.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
It really opens your eyes to, like, wow, like, it can be almost double of what, if you took it at 62 versus what your monthly check would be at 70. I mean, it's a big leap.
So I would say go do that. Just because you're like, oh, wow, I'm going to have that money.
It gives you peace of mind. Yeah, I think, to know, again, like, sometimes we're very focused on that thing that we have socked away, which in a lot of cases is not as big a number as we'd like it to be, even though we've been putting money in our 401ks, it feels like, for 30 years. Like, it's still not a lot of money. At least in my case, it isn't. And that actually, I don't want to dwell too much on retirement accounts, because you have a lot on this in your book and it's very detailed. But as far as, like, if you didn't have a 401k, or if you are feeling like you need to start a retirement account, you know, after hearing us talk today, where would you start? I mean, do you even advise people having retirement accounts? I mean, it's important, right? It's an important part of retirement.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. You should. And it's really easy to do and to set up, for sure. There's great financial, you know, at a financial services company like Vanguard or Fidelity, at T. Rowe Price, Schwab, what have you, you set up an individual retirement account that if you're self-employed, like, we were just talking about, John, a lot of freelancers and stuff, just automate this. If you can just cast a chunk of that aside, automate it directly from your checking account when you every single month go into this, either a traditional individual retirement account, if you anticipate that your tax, that this is an important tax situation for you, you're thinking you want that tax deduction on your taxes currently, or do a Roth. I love the Roth. If you qualify for that, then you're not going to have to pay tax on that money coming out. And you may be in a different tax bracket at that point, and it may make sense for you to do that moving forward. But I think it's very important to understand this is not hard to set up. They make it super easy, and it's just a matter of automating it. I think that's the biggest stumbling point. People,
Yeah.
I'm trying to make ends meet. There's absolutely no way I'm paying my rent or my mortgage. And you're like, yeah, actually, you probably won't miss it if it goes out pre-tax, if you're doing it that way with the traditional. Jenna, would you add to that in any way?
Yeah, I would just say, well, I've been a freelancer and I have an SEP IRA or IRA. And it's a great tool. Like you can stock a lot of money in there. So there have been times in my career that I've had the SEP because I've been freelancing, and
what does SEP stand for? Is it
Simplified
okay
Employee
Plan?
Okay.
I think that's it. Simply. Sorry, we don't have it. We should know.
No, I don't even mean, I just was making sure people knew what an SEP is.
What's different from a traditional and an SEP is that you can put a little bit more money aside.
Got it.
The SEP one. And then there's a solo 401k for freelancers that has to be set up by December 31st of the tax year that you want to start that in. And you can even put more aside in these, in the solo 401k for retirement purposes that are tax deferred. And so it's a super way to do that. And they all make it easy to set these kinds of, and you don't have to be a whiz about, oh, what should I invest in? Go index funds. You need 3 index funds, S&P 500, an international fund, and a bond fund, a total bond fund, and let it go. Don't sweat it. You don't have to be giving it a million different ways.
Right.
And you can put more into just like a regular 401k with catch-up contributions once you hit 50. So that's like a good way to like, okay, I need to put extra in there. So that's helpful.
Lisa writes, this is fantastic information. This topic is not discussed enough. I'm going to have to go back and watch and replay. I know, I feel the same way. Like, I feel like there's going to be a lot of information here. It's going to be hard to keep up, but people watching, please, put the questions in the comments, because I'm going to definitely ask you guys at the end some questions, because these are all my questions. And of course, it's completely self-serving because I have you hostage for an hour. But I wanted to, and speaking of self-serving, let's talk about credit card debt. We opened up the show talking about the fact that a lot of Gen X suffers from credit card debt, probably more so than previous generations. I know that my mother is always shocked at my credit. She's a silent generation. I think she's watching this in the other room, so she's probably screaming out loud right now. But she's always surprised that I have debt, and I think it's but I'm glad to know that it's very common among people in our age, and there's a million reasons why we won't get into it. Probably because it's freaking expensive to live in this world. And it's hard to keep up. But what are your tips for chipping away at it? Because it does sometimes feel insurmountable, and all these things we're talking about, putting away in an IRA, and there's all these different, places to put your money. And then it's like, well, at what place in the chain should credit card debt be, as far as like, because that seems to be like the most ridiculous albatross around our necks, is this debt with the interest rates, what they are oftentimes.
Yeah. I mean, it really should be the first thing that you tackle, to be honest, because of those interest rates. Because if you put that same money into, your 401k and you make, say, 8% on it, you're still losing money because you're paying like, maybe 19-20% on your credit card debt. The credit card debt, we have a couple different ways to go about that. We got to interview this really great guy who shared his story about his credit card debt. And, he had lost his job at the Great Recession, got divorced, he had double whammies going on here, and then racked up a whole bunch of credit card debt, and he had to like really work to pay it down. And he literally even said, he's like, I even put my credit cards on ice, like froze
like
them.
literally like froze them. I like put the I hide them in places I can't find them, and
yeah. So one of the things you really want to do is tackle the debt with the highest interest rate first. If you can, that's called, like, I think it's called the snowball method, and pay that down as quickly as possible. Check out if there are any balance transfer, 0% balance transfer cards.
that's
And
important.
yeah, you could you might get 12, 18 months of 0% interest where you could just pay down that balance. And so that's a really great way to do it. Those are my preferred
Consolidating it. If you have debt on different cards, is there, like, I remember at one point I had, and this might have been a bad idea, but I had like Citibank take it, that I started paying like I forgot how I did it, but I wrapped the debt into a Citibank account, and then I just pay one interest rate on all that debt. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What I did?
Yeah, you can do a consolidation loan. If you have a bank that you work with, they can help you take out a bank loan actually that consolidates all of that and you can at a much lower interest rate, say 8% or in that vicinity. That the other method that some people do is the avalanche, I think it is, where you start with the smallest amount. And because then you go, oh, I did it, I paid something. And so you have renewed confidence and you go to the next one. What Jana mentioned, I think, is really the preferred way to do it, because you got to get the high interest down as fast as possible. But if it's going to help you feel more like you're getting something done, some people do try the other method of doing it. But the most important thing is to don't ignore it. I mean, it just will, it is the biggest stumbling block to achieving almost any of your dreams. And I just think there are certain kinds of debt we all say is okay to have, but credit card debt
is the worst.
At those rates, it's just not. If you're revolving the credit, it's hard to make that case.
Yeah. One of our good friends at LendingTree, Matt Schultz, also has his own book too. I forget what it's called, but it's a good book too. But anyway, he is a huge proponent. Call your credit card issuer and ask for a lower interest rate.
It works.
Right? So if you can't get it all into a balance transfer card or whatever, just make that phone call. And he's like, eight times out of 10, you're going to get it.
And
they don't want you to transfer it over, right? They don't benefit.
They'll do that. They'll also, if you have late fees, if you've been a customer or had that card for a while, they'll take that late fee off. If you just have to ask. Sometimes people think that they can't do that. And I'm so glad you brought that up, Jana. That's really important, that to empower yourself by do something, reach out and say, hey, this is, especially if you've been there and you've always paid on time, you haven't had run up big balances before, say, look, here's my record. I'm a loyal customer here, but this happened. And so, all of those different things, those penalties for missing dates or, those sorts of things can really help you get some traction. But most importantly, like Matt told us, you'd be surprised that they may very well drop your interest rate down for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can also use home equity. You could refinance, pull a little bit of your equity out to like get rid of some of those balances. Definitely, I've talked to a lot of real estate guys, and they're just like, we see that a lot.
Yeah.
Especially since you probably had a pretty good run up in home prices, so you probably do have equity that you might be able to tap.
And one thing I would,
what would be the advantage of doing that? Because the interest rate would be much lower on that loan.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, good question. The other thing, John, is you can, and I don't encourage people to do this, but you can take a loan from your retirement account, which has lots of reasons why you might not want to do that. But if you're really, just buried under this debt, if you do that, what happens is you, in fact, do have to pay that loan back, but you're borrowing from yourself. And even if there is an interest charge on that, but again, you're paying interest to yourself. So it's not, your company might charge a little small fee for taking out that loan. But it is, if you're really desperate, it is something, as long as you know that if you leave that company, you might have to pay that back rather quickly. that amount, but if you feel comfortable doing it, it is a method to get out from under. I do not advise people to actually take that hardship loan or withdrawal, the hardship withdrawal, like completely taking it out.
Yeah.
Try not to do that, because that's
Taxes.
really going to set up, not be good for your future if you can stay away from doing that.
Right.
The loan is it is one way you could do it.
I want to just, and we're going to wrap up soon, but I do want to talk about the cost of healthcare, because I think this is something that a lot of people, I mean, it just nationally are struggling with. This is the big conversation now, but Gen Xers, I think, are finding themselves in a situation where, like you and I, Jana, where we lost a job where we had health insurance, and then we had to go get our own health insurance. At least I did. And I was surprised just how much it was for my family. And I mean, shocking. And I'm wondering, you guys have some good tips about thinking about healthcare and keeping the cost down. Can you share some of them with us?
Definitely. I feel like this is such a, this is in the headlines now, right?
Yeah, exactly. With the
cost of healthcare and, those subsidies going away. And so going on the exchange is just going to be so much more. My sister and her husband, they're saying their bill go way up because he's self-employed, and it's just, well,
so, we don't get, because sometimes we don't qualify for the Obamacare. Like there's a lot of gray area where it's like, maybe you make a little too much to qualify for the Obamacare subsidies, but then you don't make enough. Like then you get walloped by.
Now you can write, if you're a freelancer and you're independent business person, you can write a lot of this off your taxes. If you may do the standard deduction, which might end up being higher altogether on your taxes. But I think it's 7.5% if your medical expenses exceed that of your adjusted gross income, you can write, like when I freelanced, I was often able to write off my premiums and all that, even though it was $1,200 a month or something. I mean, it's ridiculous. But Jana, I want to say one thing, and I want Jana to get into nitty gritty. Jana, one of the biggest tips that we have in the book is that for setting yourself up for Gen X, the most important thing you can do is stay healthy today.
Yeah.
To actually invest in
your health.
Your health, in eating health, and with an eye to nutrition, in having an exercise plan, of being physically fit, not necessarily running fast miles or bench pressing, but having a sense of taking care of yourself, because that is going to be the best investment you can make to deal with this grappling future, not even today with what we're seeing, what you're saying with layoffs, but the future healthcare costs, which is exorbitant. And Jana, you did some good research on that in the book.
Yeah, well, we have a great source who's both a physician and a financial planner. So she.
Oh my God, perfect.
Yeah.
I might have to interview her. I might have to get her name after.
Oh, you should. She's terrific.
Oh yeah, Carolyn McClanahan, awesome. Anyway, so you see these how much you're going to spend on healthcare costs and retirement out of pocket, and it's a huge number. It's over. It's six figures, but it depends on your health, right? Like it's an average. And so a lot of people are not going to spend that much, and a lot of people are going to spend more. And what Carolyn said, she's like, when you're in your 40s and your 50s, this is the time to get your health figured out, because this is like your last moment. So like if you get your health figured out now, then when you're in your 60s and 70s and 80s, it's like you've always been healthy. Mm-hmm. And so and that's also like when the health conditions start to crop up. And my personal example, all of a sudden I started having high blood pressure. Mm-hmm. Never had it before. And I was like, what is this? And I was really, really upset about it. Until I finally learned from my parents, everybody in our family has it. And it's like, oh, okay. You just can't run away from your genes. It's just, you can run away in your 30s but once you hit the 40s and 50s, but Carolyn's like, you got to get that under control. If you don't, your high blood pressure could turn into heart failure. And that's going to be even worse. And that's going to be more expensive. And so, I started taking blood pressure medicine. It's under control. And so that's like just one way to think about your healthcare costs going forward. It's like, do stuff now to set yourself up for success later.
Yeah. So important.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think Medicare covers everything after 65, and it absolutely does not. So you do have some significant out-of-pocket expenses for the rest of your life. And at the tail end of life with all the, assisted living. And I mean, this is astronomical if you start living through it with your parents, if you haven't
Right.
already.
I'm dealing with it right now. Yeah.
It's just mind-boggling. And so anything you can do today to really take control of the things we can control. And that's it's one way to do it. So.
Well, you interviewed so many people, and one thing I really liked about this book is how many, real life examples you had. And I also liked all the Gen X references to pop culture. That's that I like. But was there one story that really stood out, sort of a late starter success story, that people can feel inspired by? Because I'm always, trying to turn to people and stories of people who, are like us, and figure out a way to, live out the next, 20 years in a happy way. Were there some, there was a lot of people you talked to, but were there some that kind of really, kind of inspired you and made you think, oh, this is cool, I want to be this person?
You got any, Jana, you want to jump on?
Yeah, I know I mentioned the guy with the credit card debt, and he had that double whammy with lost his job for a year after in the Great Recession. He had said before that point, he had been set up. He was thinking he was going to retire at 55. And he's like, that's no longer the case. But here he did, he pivoted to a different type of work. He paid down his credit card debt. And when I talked to him, he had just bought a house. Wow. He'd been renting and stuff. And he said to me, he's like,
changed his life. Yeah.
He's like, he was like 2 years from being 55. He's like, I'm not going to retire 55. He's like, but I think I might be able to go down to part-time at 65. And he's like, that sounds pretty good. And he really loves what he does. He works for a nonprofit that helps people find jobs. And so, he gives back, and it was inspiring to see someone knock down that much and still get back up.
Yeah. That's important for me to hear.
Scrappy generation, resilient. And you got to believe in yourself that you can do this. But John, I know it looks like you have another question, but what I truly need to know, we're asking you a question here. What was your favorite band growing up?
And movie.
Are you asking me?
Yes, we are.
Oh, I thought that was a comment. My favorite band growing up. Well, it was probably the Beatles, the Police. And then I started getting really into rap music. So it started becoming like, let's see, Rakim and Eric B and Run DMC. And I'm a DJ. So this is a very difficult question for me, because I just am so awash in music, and I just love so many different kinds of music. But those are the first bands that came to mind. What about you guys?
Well, I don't know. I love Pearl Jam and Eddie Vedder.
Right.
That's always.
I love that era. So I'm a late Gen Xer, right? So that era was when I was more in my 20s. And yeah, I love Nirvana, and I loved Pearl Jam, and of that era, even Rage Against the Machine. It's interesting. My son got me into that music because he started listening to that Lithium channel on Sirius XM. He was really, really into. My son's a musician, so he's really into music. But and he goes to music school, college. So. But so that music, I sort of rediscovered that music, because I don't think I listened to it so much when I was younger. But now I really like it and appreciate it. How about you, Jana?
That's similar. I'm a big Nirvana, Pearl Jam fan. Also, Alanis Morissette.
Oh yeah, love Jagged Little Pill. It's a great album. I've seen her do the concert. Yeah.
I went to a Pearl Jam concert earlier this year with all of my husband's college friends. Oh God, it was
that's so fun.
Oh yeah, it took a week to recover from all the fun.
Yeah,
make retirement bites and hand it out to the audiences.
It's such a good. That's a good. Yeah, it's perfect. It's your demo is right there, and then I should hand out little cards to my Substack.
Let's do that. Yeah,
Small talk. I think we've tapped into something here. Somebody mentioned HSAs. I'm not going to get into HSAs because I think that's in your book, and it's a whole other thing, but definitely something that we didn't talk about when it comes to health insurance.
We love HSAs. We think
you're big fans of HSAs?
Yeah.
Okay. So talk to I don't know, who do you talk to about HSAs? Your financial advisor, whatever. But let me just make sure there's no other questions, because I want to give people a chance. Does anybody have a question out there? Don't be shy. Well, this has been fantastic. I could talk about you guys forever. Talk about this topic forever, and you guys forever, because this is like so top of mind for me. The book is called Retirement Bites: A Gen X Guide to Securing Your Financial Future. There it is. Thank you. It's a really good book. It's a really good read. It's really accessible. You know, I'm definitely going to have to reread some chapters. There's just so much information in there. These guys are really experts on this. And I think you'll get a ton of value out of it. So thank you for coming on my show and discussing it.
Oh, thank you for having us. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. All right. Well, this is Small Talk, and we'll see you next Friday with another episode. So thank you, everyone. All right, I'm going to end the stream. Let's see if that worked. End the stream. All right, I ended it.